guys, and welcome back to my channel. So before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you have already seen my birth story video. I will link that up here if you haven't yet, but that's kind of the first part to this, and this one is my afterbirth story. I explained in the other one that I am separating my two experiences for my own sake, because I want to still look back on my birth and feel like really good about it and feel all those really great emotions that I had during it, and not have it be tainted by this afterbirth and my experience here, because it was very traumatic. And so that's just my way of coping with things. So of course that means two different videos. I'm just going to, I guess, go through and walk through what happened after Nova was born and kind of explain and share some of my feelings on that. Okay, so once Nova was born, we had about 10-15 minutes, I'd say, of just enjoying her, sobbing our eyes out, just really feeling all of the emotions of having a baby, and having a baby after 5.5 years of infertility, and just really soaking it in. And so she was on my chest, we were doing skin to skin, Caleb cut the cord, all of those things happened. And during that time, the part that you don't always see on vlogs and movies and videos is during that time, usually there's still stuff going down there and they're working to get your placenta out. And so we had made a plan to do what's called active management, and so that means having the shot of oxytocin right after delivery to help get the placenta out. So we were already being proactive in that sense as well. So they usually give your placenta 10 minutes to come out on its own, and then after the 10-minute mark is when they start to start to do things and start to kind of get a little more serious about it. So we had about 10 minutes of just hanging out, not feeling any worry or anything. And then after about that mark, I could kind of see on my midwife's faces that they were a little concerned. Not crazy concerned, but just a little. And so I was, I felt confident. Okay, sorry about that. I felt really confident in being in their hands, and we were in the hospital, so I just kind of focused, my attention on my new baby, and tried not to, think anything of it, and just assume that, it would work its way out. So that's when they started to, ask me to start pushing to get the placenta out. They started tugging on it gently to try and encourage it to come out. I got those oxytocin shots and all of that. So we were trying to basically be active in getting the placenta out. And so I don't know how long after that, but essentially it wasn't coming out. And what ended up happening is part of it came out. It just wasn't intact and wasn't, it wasn't coming out properly. And so that's when they started to kind of worry, and they called in a nurse to come help to try and get another IV in. I had one already, but it wasn't super effective. It was a slow flow. I don't really know exactly what it was, but they wanted another one. That's when, things kind of got really crazy. The IV wasn't working. They weren't able to get it in really. Then they had to call doctors in and nurses in. So what happens is if your placenta is in too long and it doesn't come out, you can hemorrhage and you can start to bleed a lot. So that was starting to happen. I was hemorrhaging and bleeding a lot because my placenta was still in there. So they were trying to get the IV in. Multiple people tried. My arm, I'll put a picture in, but my arm was so bruised after and crazy because there was just so many different people trying to get this IV in, because I had already lost a lot of blood already. My veins weren't easy to get in, and all kinds of things, and the craziness of it. I go from having this beautiful moment with my daughter on my chest and my husband, and then all of a sudden there's 10 people in the room, and we had a tiny room, and they're flurrying around me, running around. I didn't even know if I remember everything correctly, because it was crazy. All of a sudden, my arm's being yanked around. I'm being yanked in every direction. Nova is taken off of my chest, because obviously, this is the part that gets me. Because obviously they needed access to me. So I'm naked, just laying there, and then my baby's taken off my chest. She just went over to the other side with Caleb and did skin to skin with Caleb. So she was safe and fine and everything was fine. But to just feel like you have your baby there and the warmth of her, and then to feel so cold as she's like leaving, and you just feel really helpless. And I couldn't see like what she was doing or where she was going or anything. And that's when like my team was really good, and my doula, you know, she told me like she's just going with Caleb, she's doing skin to skin. She gave me like a play-by-play of everything so that I could keep calm. But it was just so difficult to feel her just being taken away physically. It was really hard. So anyways, I'm just kind of laying there, being yanked around, not really knowing what's going on. I mean, because I knew that it was my placenta and I know what that means, I put two and two together myself. But I wasn't getting like a ton of information. I'm just getting like a lot of craziness, because they're just trying to act fast. Like they need to save my life, really. And I'm bleeding a lot and hemorrhaging, and it's intense and it's really scary. So anyways, so then this anesthesiologist comes in and he does the IV. He gives me a numbing needle, I think, because they were really poking my arm like crazy. And then all of a sudden he says something like, "You're gonna feel weird," I think is what he said. And yeah, all of a sudden I started to feel weird. I did not know what was going on, you guys. All of a sudden I was high out of my mind. I later find out that I was given ketamine, because the actual process of taking the placenta out and the manual scraping is so painful that they needed me to be not coherent and not able to feel what was going on, because it had to happen so quickly. It was an emergency and they had to just, you know, figure it out. So that part was really traumatizing for me, because to have it all happen so fast and to not know what's going on and to all of a sudden literally not be of your own mind was really hard. And I don't even remember. I don't even know what was going on. I have no real recollection of anything other than just all of a sudden being out of it, and finally waking up and just seeing things all over the walls. Like I was hallucinating, really, and not able to see clearly. And I could hear voices, but I couldn't see what was happening, and I didn't know what was going on. And so my doula, Kayla, was right there next to me, and the only thing that I could coherently figure out when I was coming to was that someone was stroking my hair, and I knew that it was her. And so I instantly felt a little better, because I felt like, okay, I'm not totally alone. Someone's with me. I must be okay. Like I can feel someone stroking my hair, even though I can see such wackiness everywhere. And she starts kind of talking to me, and I can't make out what she's saying for the longest time. It felt like forever. I'm sure it was only a couple of minutes, but it felt like a long time that I couldn't understand what anybody was saying. I could just hear noises. And finally I could hear her saying, just telling me what was going on, like saying that Nova's okay, that Caleb has her and all that. And so when I did finally come to, I had this like oxygen mask on me, but I had been sobbing. I'd been crying so much that I had so much, this is gross, I had so much snot in my nose and just like filled up that I could not breathe even with the oxygen mask. So I was kind of like struggling, and I struggled to like take it off so that I could say like, I can't breathe, like I need to blow my nose, like help me, like I need to blow my nose. So they were able to try to get me to blow my nose, and it didn't really work, and I still couldn't breathe. But anyways, as I was coming to, there were less people in the room. It was just really my midwives, my doula. Caleb was off in the corner, and there was the OBGYN who was doing the manual scraping of my placenta. He was still there, and he was actually finishing up stitching me up, because I did have a 2nd-degree tear from pushing. So he was finishing all that up, cleaning me up and everything. And that was kind of what I came to. And I found out later that I was under or out of it for an hour, that the actual whole procedure kind of craziness took an hour, and that during it I bled a lot, and I bled like everywhere. And Caleb was actually, so my bed, if this is my bed and I'm laying here facing here, Caleb was only like maybe 2 arm reaches away in a chair, and like right here, like directly there. So he had like front view of everything that was going on. He told me later that he saw like the bleeding, he saw everything, what the doctor was doing. At one point, like, this is so TMI and disgusting, but at one point I literally geysered blood all over the floor, and the OBGYN had to dodge it. And even he got it on his shoes, and then the next day when we saw him, he still had my blood on his shoes. Like, it was just insane, and just so much, and a lot for Caleb to handle. Like, the whole time he's trying to bond with Nova and trying to do skin to skin, which is something he had dreamed about for so long and really wanted to like cherish that moment. But of course he was also witnessing, you know, me being totally helpless and stuff. So it was traumatic for him too. So then when everything kind of settled down a little bit, and once I was okay and they were just kind of doing the cleanup, I was getting more like fluids in my IVs and more stuff going on. Just everybody was hands-on, trying to like, you know, get me back to an okay state and back to. So then I got a little bit of an explanation of what all happened. I was getting checked, getting like the pushes to try and like check on my tummy and get more blood out and just see, you know, what's going on. And then the OBGYN was all done with stitching, so he had to leave to go do a surgery, and he's like, I'm going to come back, I'm going to talk to you about this, we're going to talk about it. So that was good. I felt a little more reassured that I wasn't just being left to nothing. And my midwives were all still there and helping me through it. It was a while. So Nova was born at 8:39 p.m. and we didn't actually go to the recovery room until I think like 2:30 in the morning because of everything that was happening there in the afterbirth. So it was very traumatic for me, really difficult. There was just so much intensity, so much out of my control. I was really scared. I was worried. I didn't know, you know, what was going on with Nova. Like, I had no idea really about anything. I was just kind of left to my own imagination and my own like hallucinations, which is not fun, let me tell you. Of course, all of that was really necessary, and getting me dealt with fast and quickly was the best option, and making sure I didn't feel it was the best option. And so I'm okay with everything and how everything went. It was just, like I said, traumatic, but it's like, I understand it and I can accept it and I'm okay with it. I'm glad that it went that way, because it means, you know, my health and my safety was taken care of first and foremost, and that's good, and that's definitely what we want. So yeah, so finally I get wheelchaired over to the recovery room, and I'm just, yeah, pumped with fluids, so many IV fluids. I think I had like 8 bags of IV fluids or something crazy like that. And just, yeah, being monitored. The nurse came in like every like 20 minutes, I swear, to like check my vitals, check on me, check on Nova and everything. So we didn't get any sleep, and I had had a really long labor before, so I was exhausted at this point. But yeah, just trying to kind of like get back to my own sanity. I was still really out of it. The epidural was still in, so I still couldn't walk or use the bathroom. I had to have a catheter in. I had several IV lines going in, everything. So it was a pretty rough first night of not sleeping and just kind of feeling really wacky. And then on top of that, trying to like maneuver breastfeeding was really hard, being hooked up to so many IVs and like trying to get her to latch, and it was just really hard. And then later we find out she had a tongue tie. So it was a very difficult first night, but we were also just in bliss too, because we had our baby, and that was like the main focal point of our lives and what we really cared about the most. And because I knew I was going to recover and I was going to be okay, you know, that sort of thing. But what we did find out is that I lost a lot of blood. My hemorrhaging meant that I lost 1.5 to 2 liters of blood. I was really close to getting a blood transfusion, but because blood transfusions can kind of cause complications in future pregnancies, I think because you're introducing other foreign blood, I don't really know, but what the deal was is that the OBGYN didn't want to do the blood transfusion unless it was like really necessary, because of that. And so I appreciated that it wasn't just done without my knowledge if it didn't have to be because of that. But what I did end up doing the next day, I got an iron IV like transfusion. And so that was to help because my hemoglobin number went way down. I can't remember what it was, but it was like ridiculously low. So I needed that IV. And so we stayed in the hospital for the whole day, so that I could get that and get pumped up and get my fluids and try to get a bit better. And I probably would have stayed overnight again, but we kind of asked to go because I wasn't feeling good in the hospital. I just really felt like I needed to be home. So we did go home, and yeah, recovery after that was really hard. I was really silent on like social media and on all platforms and everything because I was just really trying to cope with the trauma of everything and to recover. So because of the IV fluids, what happened is they all got retained in my body and I puffed up like I was a swollen mess. I'll insert a picture of my feet. My feet, you guys, were so swollen I couldn't fit in my shoes. They were massive. And it was terrible. It was affecting so much. It was affecting my breastfeeding because my body was putting more effort into actually expelling the fluid and trying to get rid of that than it was in building up my supply and creating milk and being able to feed Nova. So we had a really hard time with breastfeeding at first. She wasn't getting any milk really, and I wasn't producing anything, and it was like just her basically being really hungry and crying a lot and like really difficult nights, and just she was getting dry, and then she ended up having jaundice and we had to go into the hospital to put her on light therapy and everything, and it was a whirlwind on whirlwind on whirlwind, and everything was just kind of piling on top of each other, and I was like overwhelmed, but still like really super happy and totally fine emotionally because I was just so happy with, my daughter and everything. But then on the other side, I was still dealing with the like trauma of the afterbirth and everything. Essentially, long story short, my recovery after was really rough. The IV fluids made things really difficult. The low iron made things really difficult. I was really tired and just weak. So that took a little while to get back. Now the fluid has gone. My feet are back to normal, thankfully. And my breastfeeding is doing a lot better. I'm on a medication to increase my supply, and I'm going to a breastfeeding clinic. We got her tongue tie fixed. Her jaundice is fixed. So now we're at a point where everything is looking up and we are back to a normal and we're doing really well. And so so everything that happened was crazy and it was really intense, but now I think we're officially over it. So with the retained placenta, what that essentially means is that I'm definitely at risk of having a retained placenta for future pregnancies, and they believe that it will probably happen again, or at least I need to prepare for it to happen again. So what that means is that I will always be having a hospital birth, probably always being some level of medication involved, definitely for the afterbirth, at least for getting the placenta out. We'll have to have like a pretty concrete plan on how things will go, making sure that we have like a team set up to help deal with the retained placenta afterwards, acting fast, having multiple IVs in like on the ready and just ready to go for after, so that we're not wasting any time trying to get any in and losing more blood in the process. All of that sort of thing. But what's good is that it doesn't mean that I can't get pregnant again. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't. It is just it just means that we'll have to do things a little differently and be proactive, and that's okay. I can handle that. I can deal with that. So yeah, that's really basically everything that kind of happened there in the afterbirth. It was, like I said, traumatic for me, and it was a lot for me to take and handle, and really it just kind of was upsetting for a little while. But I think I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm coping with it, and I can kind of put it behind me, not forget it or anything, but just not have to worry or focus on it anymore. Especially now that all of those other like trials with breastfeeding and stuff are kind of over. I'm not being like reminded of it all the time, so that's good. So I guess that's really it for my afterbirth story. I don't think that there's anything more to add. So thank you guys for listening to this video and listening to me talk about everything that happened. Birth and everything is crazy. It's so beautiful and so amazing, but it's pretty intense, and there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot that can go not to plan, that can go wrong. And so, yeah, everybody's birth story is so unique, so different, and really truly special, but then it also has some hard parts and some bad parts. And I think that's okay to recognize that, to understand that you can still be happy with your birth and happy with the way your child came into this world, but not love all of it and not be happy about all of it. And that doesn't mean that you're not thankful, and it doesn't mean that you're not, you know, excited for everything that came out of it. It just means that you're being truthful to yourself, and you're realizing that it wasn't perfect, and that's okay. So I'm going to be done talking about this. I don't want to talk about it anymore for a while. We are officially closing that book for a little while and moving forward with life, because I have a sweet little baby girl, and that is just the best thing ever. So I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll say goodbye. Say bye, Nova. Thank you guys again for watching and for being so supportive. We love you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.